I'm Greg with the Find Your Film podcast. Joining me here is Supercell actor Daniel Diemer. Daniel, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you doing?
Great. I really enjoyed this movie, and I want to first start off with your character, William Brody. Usually in these type of movies, the main character, even if he or she's coming of age, their personality is a little bit more colorful. And this is not a negative thing. I loved how your character stays pretty much within bounds throughout most of the stories. Very subtle and introverted, doesn't do anything out of character. Was that how you approach this role? Because I really love the subtlety behind the main character, your main character. So
totally, and I really love how you talked about that, because I mean, as a person, I'm very introverted and shy, and there's very few roles where I get to kind of lean into that, especially on the lead side of the spectrum. Again, there's also like a lot less dialogue than you normally get for a lead character. It's a lot of listening, and so I really wanted to ground it out with just the relationships, his relationship with Anne, with Skeet, with Jordan, and try to enter into that as honestly as possible, and then just kind of sit there and listen. I mean, the kind of story speaks for itself, the environment speaks for itself, and just try to kind of be in those moments as honestly as possible, and not try to be anything too exciting. Just trust that I won't be boring as long as the story kind of carries everything. And Jamie did an incredible job with that. And so, really grateful to jump into a character like William.
You know, you mentioned listening, and as a media member over the last 30 years, I've just had the pleasure to interview Skeet and Anne and Alec and just learn from them, from their stories. You're not just listening, you're working with them. Yeah. So what tangible lessons or did you take away from just these three great actors, I guess?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Most of it was just about relaxing, like the solidity of presence was such a huge thing. I think it's really easy as a young actor to feel like you need to do a lot, especially in the YA kind of spectrum. There's a lot of energy going on. And you see these guys and they just like they enter in so seamlessly with who they are. They bring so much of their own presence and energy in, and then they just kind of manipulate that for the different characters, and they're so talented. So it's really watching them and the nuances of how they kind of work through things and taking that in and being like, trust yourself. You don't need to put on a show. The stories, as long as they're written well and told honestly, they kind of do everything that you need to do. And so just trust yourself, trust the process, trust your acting abilities, and just sit with it and sit into relationships and kind of just work with people on this one-to-one basis, rather than thinking that, hey, I need to be something for somebody, or I need to show the audience something. And they do that beautifully. So no, it was a great learning experience in that regard, for sure.
My big complaint with Supercell is your character doesn't finish or even try to start with those huevos rancheros. That is a cardinal sin. But you mentioned on your Instagram, I'm still angered about that. Right? Anyway, just kidding. But you mentioned this movie has a lot of heart.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was wondering if you can elaborate on that, and where's the heart in this movie? In which,
Yeah, no, it's again another great question. I think again, so much of it comes from just this sense of relationship and the sense of loss. I think I'm not sure what your own personal experience with loss is, but I know for me, I've had certain family members and certain friends pass, or you just kind of lose them in the process of life and moving around and just careers and just people changing. And so I think that was the biggest thing of taking a look at like this kid who's really just hungry to learn about his father, who he lost at a really young age and didn't really have a chance to really grow to understand. And so centering everything around this feeling of loss and trying to gain it back. And obviously it's impossible. You can't replace somebody. Like that's such an important part and piece of your life. But there's aspects, I think, through learning about them through other people that's so beautiful. And I think that's kind of where it centers, is this really honest, earnest attempt to just understand where he comes from personally, what his family history is, what his dad was like, but also really this attempt to understand his mother as well. Because I think there's obviously such a disconnect at the beginning in that way, and he doesn't understand where she's coming from. And I think throughout this, every step along the way kind of gives another piece of who his mom is as well. And when he kind of comes to the end, and I did this for you, it really is this honest thing of like, I'm trying to understand you and be there for you, but also kind of explore who I am and really try to understand that. And I think that's really where the heart kind of centers around. And then obviously all the action kind of pieces that all together.
Again, you're working with great actors, but specifically Anne Heche, when I used to interview her, she was so locked in. And so I felt that I was intimidated because I go, I need to be more locked in this situation. I should be more as professional as she is. So just this working the scenes with her, because it just feels every line she says in this movie, you just feel it.
Yeah.
And you have to bounce off that and with your internal situation as well.
Yeah.
What was that like? Yeah.
No, it was definitely intimidating. I mean, there's so much energy coming at you. She brings so much of herself again, and I hate to reuse the word too much, but there's so much heart in who she was. It just incredibly loving human being, and through that, so much of it comes across. She really lets you into her soul, and so it was definitely intimidating. It was like, okay, well, how do I stand ground with somebody like that? And that really means trying to be as vulnerable as you can yourself, so that it doesn't become something where, again, for William himself, he can't be run over by this person. It's like he's fighting for who he is in these moments. And so it's just like, okay, well, let's go against this force, and let's confront it one-on-one and see where it goes. And it became this beautiful kind of like dance of trying to find these characters together. And she was really open to talk about it. The scene where I end up carrying her to the bed, I think, was this beautiful moment for both of us. That it just felt so just personal. It stopped feeling like a movie and just feels like, hey, this is kind of us and our relationship now. And there really were these incredible moments of kind of tying us together that just, for me as an actor, I'll never forget. And I'm really, really grateful that we had.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting at the beginning. You were mentioning how you're a little bit of an introvert. So for someone like me, looking from the outside, looking in, being introverted and being an actor seems to me like almost a bridge too far. Or maybe am I not looking at it correctly? Because being part of an introvert is doing really great inner work with your character and living that world as well. So is there not really that big of a bridge as I'm envisioning?
No, I think it kind of is, but in certain aspects. And so what I think when it comes to press, when it comes to showing off who you are and making a name for yourself and branding yourself, being a celebrity, I think that I think it becomes a lot easier when you're comfortable with showing yourself off to people. I think as an introvert, I tend to, or at least in the past, I used to hide away a lot from kind of showing who I was, being really careful and being very, very private. And I think a lot of my extroverted friends, and again, there's a whole bunch of variations to this, and we all have our nuances of extroversion, introversion, how we associate with people. But like you said, I think you said it beautifully. There's a lot of inner work that you kind of do when you're on your own and when you kind of pursue solitude. And I think it really informs you as an actor. I think, again, there's so much inner life that you're aware of that now you can bring into characters, and I think it really can diversify how you approach acting, how you approach different stories. So I think it's both. There's pros and cons to both of it. I think it's a beautiful strength to have, and then I think there's times like this where there's a lot of nerves that I come into the press tours with, where it's like I'm not usually comfortable, and luckily I have amazing interviewers like you who make you feel comfortable right away. But it's always that part's always a lot harder. The actual work, though, I think is really stimulated by that kind of inner work, and so that's definitely helped me out in my journey for sure.
Regarding the actual work, what is it like to collaborate with someone like Jamie? Spent 4 years working on this very personal story.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I'm not saying, everyone, there's a different energy with different filmmakers, but what is that energy when it's someone who really, it just feels like it's coming from their bones, their flesh, their heart? So
Yeah, no, it's, again, great questions. I've had the luck and the opportunity to work with a lot of first and second time directors that are bringing in really personal stories. And so that's been a lot of my career is really working with people who really, really care. And I think as an actor, there's nothing else that you can ask for, really. It's when you're diving into it that they're going to be there by your side because they're trying to support the story as best as possible. They're listening to you. They're taking you in. When they care, it's so much easier to kind of give as much of yourself as possible. When you're on a project with somebody where it's just kind of just to make some money, I think it really kind of lessens the experience and lessens how you feel about it and how much work you kind of less work, but how much of yourself you want to give to it because you're afraid that they're not going to take it in or respect that. And Jamie was wonderful. It's like he gave so much of himself to it. He worked his butt off on this, like so much, and in the post-production process as well. And I know he's not going to talk about it, but this man put so much time and effort into this movie, both on working with the storm chasing community and trying to make this as best as he could with the tools that he had. He's an incredible human being and a great director as well. So no, it was a wonderful experience.
Couple final questions. I really loved your performance so much and enjoyed this movie that after this, I'm going to actually when I have time this week to catch up with movies, I'm going to check out the half of it. What should I expect? What am I going to get from this movie? You're talking about personal stories and visionaries and all that stuff. What will I get from watching that movie?
Yeah, I don't want to say too much because the character that I play in that one's very, very different from William. But again, I think it's just allow yourself to just like kind of receive as much of the personal aspect as possible. Again, Alice gives so much of herself in that too. But I think the beauty of that is the nuances of how things change and adapt in the movie. So I don't want to say too much. I think most of it speaks for itself. But I think again, that's another one that's just really heartfelt. A really positive story of like a really loving message behind it. And I think that's why that movie resonated so well with so many people. And so I love to be able to spread my wings and do a bunch of different projects with a bunch of different kind of stories, but to kind of center my career on movies and projects that really have that at the center I'm really grateful for, because I think that's kind of how I approach the work and how I try to approach life as best as possible. So hopefully when you take a look at that, you'll enjoy that as much. But yeah, no, that's a great one as well, and something I'm very, very proud of.
Any other projects coming down the pike?
Yeah. I did a beautiful indie with an incredible director named Sheridan O'Donnell, based off of a friend of his. It tackles a really sensitive subject matter. We had J.K. Simmons jump on that he plays my father figure, or my actual dad, I should say, and then Philip Ettinger, an incredible indie actor as well. And I'm really, really proud of that kind of the work that we did on that. I just finished up a feature in Boston with Liam Neeson and Ron Perlman. And that one, again, completely different character. And I'm really excited to kind of show the world the guy's a little bit more nasty.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
It's so that I'm so excited for both of them. Like, and just incredible actors. So I'm pinching myself constantly with this career, with who I'm getting to work with, and the talent that they bring, and just kind of how they've been able to just like shepherd me into the industry and kind of be comfortable with me and allow me to feel relaxed and be able to do my thing. So no, I'm really excited about all those, and then currently working on a limited series for Hulu up in Canada, and I have no idea when that release date is, but I'll definitely be keeping people updated on my socials for when those start to get released.
Daniel, final question is a two-parter. First off, right off the top of your head, can you name one of your all-time favorite films, and what is it about this film that speaks to you? And then on the flip side, can you name a movie that you feel is a little bit underseen and underrated, and why so?
Interesting question. So to preface, I don't have a favorite movie. Every year there's something new that catches my attention and that hits me in a different way. Lately, I've been doing a lot of writing as well. And so a movie that's kind of captured my heart a long time ago that's stuck with me is Manchester by the Sea. I am a massive fan of a really just deeply emotional and kind of dark indie features. And I love the sensitivity of that. I think the way that they tackle loss and grief and parenthood and support, and also coming of age, is just that the writing in that is so intimately done and so nuanced. It's just so real. It just basically it feels like you're watching someone's life, but in a way that doesn't feel like you're watching a play either. It's just so well structured. In my opinion, one of the greatest screenplays ever put together. So that's probably the one that I'd say right now is my favorite, and I've rewatched a few times. On the smaller side of things, I don't know, man. It's like most of the ones that I really love, I don't think are really underrated. Maybe they don't have as big an audience. Drive is a huge one for me. I love these kind of, like, again, these ones that just focus around like characters that are dealing with loneliness or suffering, and kind of just their push against that, and their constant like desire for hope of something better, and the struggles that they come into contact with that. Again, I'm a small town boy. I kind of come at this from very much like a humanistic point of view, and I love the big blockbusters. Inception, the Dark Knight trilogy, those are some of my favorite movies of all time as well. And so I've no issue going in and seeing a couple $100 million feature film in cinema. It's one of my favorite experiences. But where my heart's really attracted to is kind of like these indies like that, Place Beyond the Pines. I saw Moonlight a couple of years ago, and that just struck me and hit me in such an intimate way. And so, I think that's kind of where I'm at right now, at least in my personal journey, is just really attracted to those types of storytelling.
Really enjoyed your film, Daniel. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much as well. Really appreciate it. And then I hope you have a great rest of the day.
You too. And before you go, just very quickly, Kenny Lonergan, Manchester by the Sea. I'm sure you haven't seen it because a lot of people haven't seen it yet. But there's this movie called Margaret, starring Anna Paquin. He wrote the script for that, and you talk about humanistic films, and you like you love Manchester by the Sea.
Yeah.
Margaret, starring Anna Paquin. You're gonna love that as well. So just FYI.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. That's amazing. I'll keep my eyes out.
All right. Take care. Talk to you soon.
Take care, man. Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.